This is the oxygen dissociation curve for human hemoglobin. This means how much oxygen is attached to hemoglobin versus how much it's detaching. Here we are looking at the percentage of saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, which means how full the hemoglobin is with oxygen as a function of pressure of oxygen. So when we start with a low oxygen pressure, this is conditions in respiring tissues. As oxygenated blood comes closer to these tissues, we will have a small decrease in partial pressure of oxygen due to the diffusion of oxygen to the outside of the blood into these tissues. This will cause a large decrease in the percentage of saturation, simply because the hemoglobin is no longer bound to oxygen. Oxygen will dissociate from hemoglobin, leave the blood, and go into the tissues. So we have a decrease in the saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, linked to the release of oxygen from the blood into the tissues. When we have high partial pressure of oxygen, which is in the lungs, for example, in the lungs we have a high oxygen content. What happens is here the deoxygenated blood is approaching the lungs in order to get oxygenated. As it approaches the lungs, we have an increase in partial pressure because of the diffusion happening from the lungs to the blood. And when the oxygen enters the blood, it's going to bind to the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. So the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen will increase. And these decreases and the increases don't happen linearly. It's not a straight line as is predicted. It's actually a sigmoidal increase and decrease. So you can see the actual curve versus the predicted curve.